Hello, Cookies here. Today I want to show you guys how to Dispriest ramp with the new Spirit Shell Clarity of Mind Legendary combo. So what this is taking the Spirit Shell talent, which is taking, that talent over Evangelism, and then also running the Clarity of Mind Legendary that's now available to us in Shadowlands. There's nothing really too drastic about this playstyle that changes. Really, the mindset that you need to get into is that Spirit Shell with the Clarity of Mind Legendary in combination, and that combination is very important. You will be just using Spirit Shell as if it was Evangelism. So if you're already familiar with the Evangelism ramp and how to set that up and how to, execute that as a Dispriest, then you're golden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over how to do the Evangelism ramp with Spirit Shell and kind of show you guys what you should be expecting to do and what you should be trying to aim to do every time. So this is just an example. We'll just run this through. I'm not going to really explain anything, and then we'll like kind of rewind it and talk it over. And the mechanic we're going to be healing is coming up here. It's the Glyph of Destruction and the Fleeting Spirits that you can see on my timers down here, or above my raid frames. You can see here I'm ramping. And this is where we go in to execute the ramp and finish it off. And you're going to watch the healing spike up after I press Spirit Shell here. And there is our Dispriest ramp. So that's what it'll look like. You can see the healing meter up here at the top. And we want to try to, mimic that every single time. And this isn't even a perfect ramp by any means, but I will kind of walk you guys through it now. So we start off, we're just DPSing the boss because we're waiting for that timer. And the proper time to start your ramp is find what ability you're trying to heal through or you're trying to prepare for, and you're going to ramp about 15 seconds before that ability comes through. Maybe even a little bit sooner, 15 to 16 seconds. So you can see here, Fleeting Spirits in combination with the Glyph of Destruction is what I'm going to be healing. So I'm going to wait till the Glyph gets a little bit lower, and you can see here, still spamming smites, and then right when Glyph gets to 15, I start power word shielding people. I'm using Power Infusion on myself, which usually isn't ideal. You usually want to use this on a DPS, but we weren't very organized, so I was just using it on myself to get the extra atonements out. And you're just going to count in your head the amount of power word shields that you're using. So we're just going to count them, and we'll go from there. So we'll rewind it just a tiny bit, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we're going to use another one, 11, 12, and that's actually way too many to use. All you really need to use is about 8 or 9 at most, and if you're not using Power Infusion, you can get away with just using 7. So you're varying in that range, let's say 7 to 9 atonements. So you're getting 7 to 9 atonements out on the raid through Power Word Shield, and you should always use Power Word Shield over Shadow Mend unless the raid is already like low HP and they need healing. And that's because Power Word Shield costs less mana and is, potentially faster being just on the GCD rather than a cast time. So we'll go back here. So we ramp up, 7 to 9 atonements. I obviously went overboard on it, and that's because of the Power Infusion. So I just want to make sure the whole raid was going to be covered. And then what you're going to do, or what you're going to see here, is you're going to cast. I need to rewind this just a tiny bit more. So we get those atonements out. We finish off the last one, and then we're going to cast a Radiance. We're going to redot the boss. You can see there I stop, and I redot the boss. So we're going to cast Radiance, dot the boss, find a target that doesn't have an atonement, Radiance them. Now you can see the entire raid has atonements. Now we press Spirit Shell, we press Mindbender, we press Schism, we press Halo, we press all of our cooldowns at that point pretty much. It's, Mind Games, Mind Blast, Penance, all those things. And then that ramps up to our full ramp completed. And that's if you're going like all out on it. So we'll go over it one more time just to kind of walk you through it. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's technically where we could stop. We Radiance, we redot the boss, we Radiance again once it's off cooldown, and we press Spirit Shell, Mindbender, Schism, all of our cooldowns. And there's our ramp. And the main thing after this point, after you're done pressing, Mind Games, Mind Blast, Penance, all those things, you want to make sure you're just spamming smites into the boss, and you should not be refreshing any of these atonements. These ones that are falling off, I do not want to touch those. I just want to utilize all these atonements I have out, so I'm just going to keep spamming smite until they're all gone. So I spam smite, smite, and now I should be, you know, refreshing atonements on the tank or continuing to DPS if we don't need the healing. So now we'll use another example here that I have just to go over another ramp. This is just going to be another like opening ramp, but we'll still go over it. So this is, we go into the ramp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Radiance, refresh the dot, Radiance, Spirit Shell, Mindbender, Schism, Halo, Mind Blast, Penance, Mind Games. And the order of which you do those abilities after finishing your ramp and pressing Spirit Shell and Mindbender, it really doesn't matter. What you want to do is Spirit Shell, Mindbender, Schism, and then you can press kind of any combination of abilities depending on the situation or just depending on your preference. I don't think there's like a super min-maxy way of doing it as far as I'm aware. So don't worry too much about it. It's just about getting that initial follow-up into the ramp that's really important. So, and then we're again spamming smites to utilize all of these atonements until they're completely gone, and then we refresh atonements on the tank and continue about our business. So we'll go over that one more time. And we go into the ramp here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Radiance, refresh the dot on the boss, Radiance, Spirit Shell, Mindbender, Schism, press all of our cooldowns. And there's another ramp. You can see the healing over here of me covering this ramp. And the whole point with Spirit Shell compared to Evangelism is with Evangelism, you want your ramp to line up just as everyone's getting hit by the damage. But with Spirit Shell now, we want to ramp a few seconds before the raid gets hit by the damage. So I would say about three or 4 seconds before the raid gets hit by the damage is when you want all of those atonements out, and you want to be pressing Schism is about 3 seconds before the raid is going to take damage. And that's so that you can build those absorb shields on the raid before they take damage, because sometimes if you Spirit Shell too late, the raid's going to take that damage, and then you're going to apply a bunch of absorb shields on them, and they're not going to take any more damage, so those absorbs are just going to fall right off. And then we have one more example that I want to show you guys for how do you ramp like outside of your major ramp window. So like, you know, what about your downtime? Because obviously if you just keep doing this, you're going to run out of mana very quickly. So this is what like a mini ramp looks like, and this is what you should be having like in between each major ramp every minute. You should be having a mini ramp every, you know, 30 seconds. So what a mini ramp is we're just kind of doing everything in half. So we're going to start applying atonements. 1, 2, 3, 4, and Radiance, refresh the dot on the boss, which I don't do unfortunately. And then this kind of gets messed up because of my Radiance is on cooldown, but we're gonna start hitting the boss. And we essentially don't use that second Radiance, but I just messed up that ramp really badly actually. So the whole point of a mini ramp is that you're only using one Radiance charge, and that's so that you're waiting for that next major ramp. And we'll kind of explain that more in depth here in a minute, but the idea is kind of the same. You just cut everything in half. So instead of doing 9 atonements, you're doing 5, or instead of doing 7 atonements, you're doing 4. So you just ramp up to 4 or 5 atonements, press 1 Radiance, and then just DPS the boss rather than pressing your major cooldowns. You'll just do like the Schism, Halo, Mind Blast, stuff like that. And that is like what a mini ramp should look like. So now if we go into logs, I will show you guys how to actually review this stuff and how to see if you're doing it properly. So we can just go here to any Zymox pull, and we can do this with any boss really. And what we're going to look for is we're going to go to damage taken on the log. Going to wait for it to load. We're going to click over here by damage or taken by friendly, and we're going to switch that to taken from ability, because we're trying to find what the raid is taking damage from, and the different damage patterns that happen in the encounter. Sorry, this is loading very slowly. Okay, and then we're going to find the most important abilities that Zymox does. You could argue Hyperlight Spark is one, but this is kind of just random damage that happens periodically throughout the raid, so there's not much to do about it. So we're going to look at Glyph of Destruction, because we know that's one that we were covering. And then we're going to look at... we will look at... Is it going to be... Yeah, it's going to be Soul Singe is the one that does damage to the raid. Let's see here. Okay, sorry about that. It was being a little bit weird. Okay, so this is like the damage patterns of the raid. So this is the glyph doing damage to the raid. This is the soul singe doing damage to the raid, which is that damage that spikes up like right as the glyph's going out that we ramped up for. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our cast. We're just going to hit cast up here at the top. We are going to go down and find ourselves or whatever disc priest we're trying to look at. And we're going to click through all of our important abilities. And to add abilities to the timeline, I'm just clicking this plus button over here. So we're going to start with Powered Radiance. That's our first major ability. And then we have Spirit Shell, which is our next major one. And then we have Mindbender. And that's all that's going to really matter. We don't need to see the other ones. So you can see here, this is what a Disc Priest ramps should look like every fight. So no matter what fight you look at, a Disc Priest should almost always have this pattern going for them. It should always be a like two radiances. This is our radiance usage. So it should always be 2, 1, 2, 1, like spread out periodically throughout the fight. Because this is what it allows. Because if they just do 2 here and then wait to do their next ramp in a minute right here, you're just wasting a radiance charge that you could be sitting on this entire time. So if you use 1 radiance here, you'll have 2 available for when you need them. So the whole point is to balance between going back and forth between 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. And then your major cooldowns fit with these double casts. And your major cooldowns like Spirit Shell and Mindbender should always be used in pair with 2 radiances. There's almost no reason why you would ever use major cooldowns without 2 radiances. So if you're seeing a Disc Priest or yourself only use 1 radiance and then press your cooldowns, that's a problem. You need to split up your radiances better. And then what we can do here is we can even look a little bit further. So let's look at like this first ramp, for instance. We can just hold and drag and look at this ramp. I'll have to go back really quick and then do it again. Sometimes it likes to bug out. All right, so here we can see the ramp even closer, and we can see, so what we're looking for again, instead of landing on the damage, we're wanting to Spirit Shell to land about 4 seconds before the damage happens. So we can see our Spirit Shell usage right here. We use Spirit Shell at 29 seconds, and the damage starts at 32 seconds. So that's like almost right on the dot of 3 seconds before the damage is happening. We're pressing Spirit Shell, so that's good. And we're pressing Mindbender right after Spirit Shell. That's also good. We want to make sure we're doing that because they go in pair together all the time. And then the last thing we can look at to really like nail this down and see if we're playing properly is we can go to the timeline. And then we're just going to go ahead and scroll down and we can see all of our casts that happen. So you can see right here is my ramp. So I cast 1 and we can just count these. And remember, we're looking for about 7 to 9 atonements being applied. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we have a radiance. We should have a dot refresh in between. We have another radiance. We have Spirit Shell, Mindbender, Schism. Rest of the cast don't matter, but as long as we're using, every ability that has a cooldown, so Halo, Mind Blast, Penance, Mind Games, then that is a fully and complete ramp. And then the last thing we want to look for is Spam Smite, because this Spam Smite means that we're not wasting all those atonements that are still active after we're done pressing all these buttons. And we also don't want gaps in between these smites. So this is like overall a pretty good ramp. And then we can go ahead and just look at one more really quick. So we'll look at, let's say, this ramp right here in the middle that happens. Okay, so this one's very interesting, right? So we have our 2 radiances here. This is where the raid starts taking damage. So this tells you that we used our abilities way too late. This Spirit Shell happens after the raid takes damage from Glyph of Destruction. So it's almost useless because the raid isn't going to continue to take that much damage. So this Spirit Shell should be like probably in the middle of this damage right here because we want it to still hit that Glyph of Destruction. And if we use it all the way back here, it's probably not going to reach that glyph. So we would want this Spirit Shell to be cast about at like probably 126, maybe 128, so that it reaches that Glyph of Destruction. So all these abilities need to be moved back further, down in the timeline. And this is how we go back and check, like, am I timing my ramps properly? Am I healing the raid when they need it? Am I, lining it up with this ability correctly? And then just to check, we can see the timeline and see if we made any mistakes. So here we go. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 atonements. We have a radiance. We have a refresh dot. We have a radiance. We have a Spirit Shell. Okay, so this is our first mistake. So we have a Schism into Mindbender. We do not want to do this, and that's because Schism only has, a certain duration on the boss once we cast it. And now because we're pressing Mindbender after, which does not get scaled with the Schism buff, we are wasting this time slot right here, which is about a good 1.5 seconds. So now we lost 1.5 seconds on our Schism, which could have been another smite added to the end of the cast. So it should always be Spirit Shell, Mindbender, Schism. And then we have our regular abilities. We have Mind Blast, Halo, Mind Games, Penance. That's good. And then we can extend this out a little further because we can't really see. And we can see if we were properly casting smites. So we'll go ahead and back up this zoom just a little bit, like so. And then we'll go ahead and go back to the timeline and see if we were casting smites at the end. And there we go, we have all our smites, and then this is our refreshed atonements on the tank. So that's good, the end's good. The only mistake here is using Mindbender after Schism. So hopefully that video wasn't too long. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And yeah, hope you're having fun in the new raid. Have a good one.